He told his friends he'd never date a black woman. Yet there I was, watching him change his entire life just to be with me. This isn't just a love story. It's about how unconscious bias crumbles when real connection happens, and how I became his unexpected obsession. I never thought my love life would become the kind of story people make videos about. Growing up in Philadelphia as a dark-skinned black woman with natural hair and strong opinions, dating was always complicated. Not impossible, but definitely complicated. I graduated with my master's in educational psychology 3 years ago, and between building my private practice and volunteering at the community center downtown, finding the one wasn't exactly at the top of my priority list. My friends called me picky. I called myself discerning. Either way, I'd been single for almost 2 years when everything changed. Dating apps were a special kind of hell. Men either fetishized me with comments about chocolate and curves, or they'd swipe left without a second thought. I once overheard a guy at my friend Maya's party say he was just not into black girls. He said it so casually, like announcing a preference for strawberry over chocolate ice cream. I remember thinking, well, that's one less mediocre man to worry about, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting somewhere deep inside. After deleting all the apps for the 3rd time that year, I decided to focus on myself. New apartment, promotion at work, maybe even that trip to Ghana I'd been saving for. That's when Maya mentioned her coworker Jake. He's smart, owns his condo, and volunteers teaching kids to code on weekends, she said over brunch. I rolled my eyes. Maya was always trying to set me up. He's not usually into black women, though, she added, stirring her mimosa awkwardly. But I think you two would really click. I changed the subject. I wasn't interested in being someone's racial experiment. Here's the thing about preferences, though. We're taught to believe they're just innocent personal choices. Nobody talks about how preferences are often just biases dressed up in acceptable language. The whole, I'm just not attracted to insert entire race conversation is bizarre when you really think about it. How do you dismiss millions of unique individuals based on one shared characteristic? It's not about forcing attraction. It's about examining why certain types feel comfortable while others don't. But that's a TED Talk for another day. So why am I telling you all this? Because sometimes the universe has a twisted sense of humor. And sometimes the very thing someone thinks they don't want becomes the thing they can't live without. Stay with me to discover how one conversation changed everything, and why what we think we want isn't always what we need. This isn't just my love story. It's about how unconscious walls come crumbling down when real connection happens. And trust me, neither of us saw it coming. I had crafted a comfortable life in my corner of Philadelphia. My therapy practice was growing, mostly working with black and brown teenagers, navigating identity and anxiety. Weekends were filled with either volunteering or decompressing with my small but solid friend group. Dating had become this background noise, something I engaged with sporadically, but without much hope. My last relationship had ended when he took a job in Seattle, and neither of us was interested in long distance. Since then, there'd been a handful of first dates that never turned into seconds, and one 3-month situation that fizzled when he revealed he wasn't actually divorced yet. Classic. Maya wouldn't stop talking about Jake. At every brunch, every happy hour, somehow his name would come up. Jake just bought concert tickets for that band you like, or Jake mentioned this podcast that sounds right up your alley. It was obvious what she was doing, and I kept shutting it down. Once, after too many margaritas, she admitted that Jake had seen my picture on her Instagram and asked questions. But then he'd made that comment, "She's gorgeous, but I usually date blondes." I told Maya to stop wasting my time. That's the thing about being a black woman in the dating world. You develop a sixth sense about who sees you and who sees a category. I wasn't interested in being someone's deviation from the norm, their exception. I'd been there in college with Tyler, who kept our relationship secret from his parents for 8 months. never again. When Maya's birthday approached, she planned a small gathering at this new rooftop bar downtown. I almost didn't go when she casually mentioned Jake would be there, but I refused to miss my best friend's celebration because of some random guy with a preference. So I put on my favorite jumpsuit, the one that made me feel invincible, and decided I'd simply avoid him all night. The universe, however, had other plans. The rooftop bar was packed when I arrived. Fairy lights hung overhead, creating this dreamy glow against the Philadelphia skyline. Maya spotted me immediately, waving from a corner table. I weaved through the crowd, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. As I approached, I scanned the group, and there he was, Jake, looking exactly like the finance bro turned creative director Maya had described. Tall, with that perfectly curated stubble, and a smile that probably got him out of speeding tickets. I settled into the empty chair across from him, deliberately focusing my attention on Maya and her birthday gifts. But in a group that small, introductions were inevitable. When Maya finally said, "Jake, this is Zora," he looked up from his phone with casual interest that quickly shifted into something I couldn't quite read. Surprise, curiosity. His, "Hey, nice to finally meet you," felt weighted somehow. Conversation flowed easily among the group, and despite my plan to ignore him, Jake and I kept finding ourselves in the same discussions. He was surprisingly knowledgeable about educational psychology, asking thoughtful questions about my work with teens. No awkward comments about my hair or skin. No, "you're so articulate" microaggressions, just genuine conversation. I caught myself laughing at his dry humor more than once. "Maya never mentioned you were funny," I said, after he made a perfectly timed joke about corporate mindfulness retreats. "Maya never mentioned you had the most infectious laugh," he countered, holding my gaze a beat longer than necessary. I felt something shift in the atmosphere between us. This wasn't in the script. This man who usually dated blondes was looking at me like I was the only person on that rooftop. The confusion must have shown on my face because he leaned forward and said quietly, "I think Maya has been telling me the wrong things about you. And probably telling you the wrong things about me." By the time the party started wrapping up, Jake and I had somehow moved to a separate table, deep in conversation about everything from our favorite documentaries to our complicated relationships with our fathers. When he asked for my number, I surprised myself by giving it to him. As I left, Maya grabbed my arm, eyes wide with questions. "What happened there?" she whispered. Honestly, I wasn't sure myself. 3 days passed before Jake texted. I'd almost convinced myself the connection I felt was one-sided when my phone lit up. "Been thinking about our conversation since Saturday. Coffee this week." No clever opener, no game playing, just straightforward interest. I agreed to Thursday afternoon at this little cafe near my office. When I arrived, he was already there, reading a book about racial justice in education, my field. He looked up and smiled, gesturing to the book. Thought I should do some homework. It wasn't performative. It was a genuine attempt to understand my world better. We ended up talking for 3 hours, with the barista giving us increasingly pointed looks as closing time approached. Over espresso, I finally addressed the elephant in the room. "Maya mentioned you don't usually date black women." I watched his face carefully, bracing for whatever excuse was coming. He looked genuinely pained. "I said something stupid to Maya months ago about having a type. The truth is, I grew up in a very white suburb with very narrow ideas about attraction. I never examined why I only dated certain women." He paused. "Meeting you made me realize how limiting that mindset was. How much I might have missed because of unconscious biases I never questioned." I appreciated his honesty, but remained skeptical. "I'm not interested in being someone's learning experience or exception." "That's fair," he said, "but I'm not asking you to be either. I'm just asking for a chance to know you better. No expectations." Something in his humility felt authentic. Through several more coffee dates and long phone conversations, I found myself opening up. He listened when I talked about microaggressions I'd experienced. He didn't get defensive or try to not all white people the conversation. Instead, he asked thoughtful questions and acknowledged his blind spots. The more time we spent together, the more I saw him working to expand his worldview. It wasn't my job to educate him, and he never treated it that way. He was doing his own work, questioning his own assumptions. When he finally asked me to dinner, a proper date, I surprised myself by saying yes. This wasn't what I expected, but maybe that was exactly the point. Dating Jake was like watching someone wake up. With each week that passed, I witnessed his perspective expanding in real time. Our first dinner date turned into weekend hikes, cooking together at his place, and eventually meeting each other's friends. The first time I brought him to my friend Keisha's birthday dinner, I watched him navigate being the only white person in the room with genuine humility. He didn't center himself or perform allyship. He just connected authentically with people as individuals. The real test came 3 months in when he invited me to his parents' anniversary dinner. "They know about you," he assured me, "and they're excited to meet you." I'd been down this road before. The awkward introduction, the subtle discomfort, the coded language. But his parents surprised me. His mother hugged me warmly, and his father asked thoughtful questions about my practice. Any tension I felt was from my own past experiences, not their behavior. Later, Jake admitted they'd had some conversations before meeting me. They had assumptions I needed to address, he said, but they did the work too. What struck me most was how Jake began to recognize racial dynamics in spaces I'd been navigating my entire life. At a work function of his, a colleague complimented my hair and asked if she could touch it. Before I could respond, Jake stepped in. "That's not appropriate to ask," he said firmly. On the way home, he was still bothered. I never noticed how often that happens to black women until I started paying attention, he confessed. Our relationship wasn't without challenges. Cultural references sometimes flew over each other's heads. We had different perspectives on holidays, music, even comfort foods. But these differences became opportunities for growth rather than obstacles. He came to love my mother's jollof rice, and I developed a surprising appreciation for his family's passion for hockey. 6 months in, we were at a party when I overheard him talking to a new colleague. "My girlfriend Zora," he said, pointing me out across the room with unmistakable pride in his voice. The colleague looked surprised, then said something I couldn't hear. Jake's response was clear, though. "I used to think I had a type. Turns out my type is just her. It's been just over a year now." Jake moved into my apartment last month, bringing his record collection and that ridiculous espresso machine he insists makes better coffee than my simple French press. Our relationship isn't perfect. No relationship is, but it's built on something real, something that transcends the types and preferences we once thought defined us. Looking back, I realize how close we both came to missing this. If I had decided to skip Maya's birthday party, if he had remained comfortable in his limited perspective, if either of us had let past experiences dictate our future, we would have lost something extraordinary. Sometimes I think about all the connections people miss because they've decided who they can love before even meeting them. The most beautiful part of our journey isn't that Jake overcame something to be with me. It's that we both allowed ourselves to be vulnerable enough to recognize authentic connection when it appeared, even when it came in a package different from what we expected. Love isn't about finding someone who checks predetermined boxes. It's about finding someone who makes you question why you drew those boxes in the first place. If you've ever limited yourself based on what you thought was your type, I challenge you to open your heart to unexpected connections. The love that transforms you might come in a package you never imagined. Life is too short, and love is too precious to let unconscious biases stand in the way of something real. Your greatest love story might be waiting just outside your comfort zone.